Hello everyone, this is Andrew. Welcome to Keen on America.
On July 4th, 2026, America will be 250 years old. An anniversary that will, no doubt, be greeted with a mixture of celebration, contemplation, and resignation. In Keen on America, Andrew talks not just about the American past and present, but also speculates on its future. What, Andrew asks, will be the 21st century fate of this now venerable American republic?
Hello everybody, it is Monday, July the 28th, 2025. We are in the height of summer, maybe slow news, and the media these days seems to be dominated by influencer news, all sorts of stories about influencers. The Washington Post, of all newspapers, running a piece about an American mega influencer who flew to Lithuania, and then the chaos began. Other pieces about influencers and chefs who went viral after various kinds of confrontation. There are even stories about husbands of influencers dodging charges over the death of their 3-year-old son. Influencers are, of course, all the rage, and I'm thrilled and honored that we do have a very distinguished influencer on the show today. Her name is Arata. She has over 117,000 followers on Instagram. She's been described indeed as the meme queen of depression Instagram, whatever that means. And she has a new book out. It's out this month. It's called You Have a New Memory. Arata is joining us from her home in Los Angeles. Aiden, welcome. Congratulations on the new book. Let me begin with an easy question for you. What exactly is an influencer? We get this term all the time, but I'm not quite sure what it means.
No, it's interesting. I think in the book, I actually describe influence as a Terminator-esque title, like influencer, and influence as a shapeless, pervasive force. So I think it's kind of funny that it's this thing that kind of is nebulous by design. It's sort of an industry that has come up, sort of grown between the cracks of like other industries. It's sort of kind of like just a pure capitalism weed in a lot of ways. I don't know. It's funny. I've been asked this many times since I started the book, and I don't know that I identify as an influencer, although I'm very comfortable with other people identifying me as that, because yeah, like creator is like a term people use a lot, which is like also kind of a funny word, like creating what, and then content creator, and then content is like a very content, like, you know, this word that's only defined by its ability to like be consumed. So I love that question, and I do really think that there's kind of no answer. I think in the way that we're using it, it's probably just someone who makes money from the internet, or whose primary engine is simply existing online in a way that's aspirational or relatable.
Yeah, and of course I looked it up on Wikipedia, and they have all sorts of examples. Elon Musk, Cristiano Ronaldo, the footballer, Mr. Beast, of course, and Kim Kardashian. Some of those characters seem almost pre-internet, or certainly pre-digital. Who for you then is the model influencer apart from yourself? Would it be Mr. Beast?
Yeah, maybe Mr. Beast, as someone who sort of built an empire off of, I think sort of that economy that is directly from fan or follower to the influencer, like not really having a middleman in terms of sort of fandom, not having the traditional infrastructure of a celebrity. Which, of course, if you look at someone like Kim Kardashian, of course, now she does have the traditional influencer of a celebrity. You know, there's like, an agency involved. There are business decisions being made. There is, and I'm sure for Mr. Beast too, honestly, at this point. But maybe it's about the idea that you organically start as someone who is making things by yourself without any of that establishment scaffolding. Whether or not that's actually, true to the experience, I am a little, not exactly, but, I think, yeah, maybe that's how I would define it.
Yeah, we were joking before we went live, Aidan, that A must be your favorite word.
Yeah.
Favorite letter, three A's in Arata, and obviously an A in Aidan. I wonder whether we might introduce another A word. The way you're describing a new influencer, they're a kind of artisan, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
And there is an artisanal quality, perhaps in a romantic, nostalgic, positive way. Do you think of yourself as an artisan?
Oh, I love that. I mean, I do think of myself as an artist. Um, I don't know if I mean, artisan, I'm going to start defining myself now, but there is something, I like that too, because when we think of something as artisanal, we think of it being niche and having an element of craft. And I really love my husband is a baker, and so we talk a lot about art versus craft, and he sort of said this thing that I love, where he said that, if art is trying to make something different every time, craft is trying to find the best way to make something, and then you make it that exact way like thousands and thousands of times. And when we think about the internet, everything is slightly different, but the idea that we're supposed to be like replicating and disseminating what we make over and over again, when something, even if it's just a joke that means nothing, I think if you hit that sweet spot, it is quite artisanal, because it hits that little part where it is craft. It's very of the people. It's very democratic in this way where anyone can access it. And, at the same time, it is sort of often like very strange and niche in its own way. So yeah, I'm going to start saying that now.
Yeah, can maybe that can be your new middle name, Aidan
Yeah.
Artisan Arata, and you've got from A to B, from Aidan Artisan Arata to your husband, the baker, and then of course Craftsman ABC got the title of a new book. In all seriousness, Aidan, you're a big time star on Instagram. As I said, 117,000 followers. Why the book? Isn't book rather old-fashioned as a medium? I'm surprised that for you, with all your instant fandom or your immediate interactions, you would waste your time with a book. What's the attraction of a book? Is it because they paid you well?
Well, if I can be completely honest with you and let you in on this.
No, you have to be honest. No one watches this, so you can be as honest as you like.
I think that I created an internet following to trick people into letting me write a book. I've always wanted to write a book. This is great. Like, I studied like conceptual poetry in college and worked at small presses, and sort of, I've always been very interested in language and sort of the ways that we play with metaphor. And honestly, memes kind of came out of that. Like, it is very much like there's text and there's image, and the ways that those work together and push against one another is sort of where the delight is in that kind of content. And so that's natural to me, but it's sort of, I don't know, like, yeah, I've always wanted to write a book. I've always been a writer. I think very early in this process, I had talked to a few agents who were more invested in creating something that felt like an Urban Outfitters book. They were like, put pictures in it, make it memes. And I was like, no, like, I'm going to write literature, whether you like it or not. Sorry. So that's why I've always wanted to do it.
Yeah, and I know on your X page, which comes with a photo of a computer screen, your pinned message, and I'm quoting here, it says, once in an autobiography nonfiction class, my work was criticized, BC, I assume that means because the protagonist had no redeeming qualities. So I'm guessing that reflects your own literary aspirations. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so. I think I've always been interested in pursuing the somewhat unlikable parts of a character, even if the character is myself. So drag me.
So are you yourself likable in this collection of essays? If for people who haven't read it yet, do you think they'll come away from this book liking Aidan Arata more or less?
Ooh, what a good question. I sort of feel like that's a question that I'm not allowed to answer? Like, isn't that like giving yourself a nickname? Like, I don't know. Do you like me?
Well, we already have your nickname. It's Artisan. Well, do you want to? Maybe I'll revise the question.
Yeah.
Do you want to be liked from this new collection? As I said, you're
Mhm.
known as the meme queen of depression Instagram, whatever that means. We'll get to maybe a definition of that, what that means. But I'm not sure whether that makes you more or less likable. Do you want to?
Mhm.
Would you like this? I mean, obviously, everyone wants to write a book to become. You're already famous, even more famous. Lots of people read your words. But what impact? Maybe let me revise the question. What impact do you
Yeah.
want this book to have? Who are you writing for?
Yeah. Oh, I love that question. I think, you know, I do think the book is very much written for people who are quite online. I think that um I took great pains actually to kind of not overly apologize or overly explain. Like I didn't want to approach the internet from a safe distance because I was very much inside of it, am very much inside of it, and in some ways am sort of complicit in, the deluge of content that we have and the, uh hyper, the attention economy and the ways that it is rotting our brains. Like, not only am I susceptible to its, wiles, but I am also like creating that. And I don't want to, it's sort of this horror of being like, oh my God, am I part of like Mark Zuckerberg's plan to destroy the universe, And it's honestly very much a book about getting what you want. Getting what you want, and that being kind of a cautionary tale in some ways. So I think I like myself. I've gone to a lot of therapy. I very much like myself, but also I am comfortable sitting in space in this book in ways that feel complicated. I'm comfortable sort of saying, I'm not better than anyone else who's doom scrolling at 3 a.m. I'm not always going to make the choice that is, the most higher self or enlightened. That's, I think it's kind of a human account of what it means to be online. And so I think I wrote it for other people who feel a little bit messy and human and kind of don't know where to put those feelings.
Do you think that the medium of the book, in that sense, is more, and I'm borrowing a word from you, more human in that it allows you more flexibility than just being on Instagram? Of course, you can be on Instagram and you can post words and pictures
Mhm.
and videos. But does the book enable a little bit more freedom for you in terms of manifesting your complexity as a human?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's just so much more room for nuance. The internet, it's so interesting to be a writer, because our tool is language, and language is, it's the same alphabet that we use when you read the instructions on something. It's the same alphabet when you read a crazy conspiracy theory tweet. It's the same, it's the news article, it's the fake news article, it's like everything, it's the advertisement after advertisement. Like, language is kind of, we're so inundated with it. And I think as sort of a survival response to that, language on the internet is very it's efficient to the point that there's kind of no pleasure in it. It's very much headline, here's the thing to buy, here's sort of the brute point of every idea immediately, because we just don't have enough time to consume and metabolize the insane amount of information that we're presented with all the time. And I think that a book is a really beautiful response to that. It's reclaiming language as something that can go on these sort of philosophical eddies and can have a metaphor that's a little bit complicated and can use a word in a way that like maybe Microsoft Word AI would not think is correct, but is like just perfect in its weird slanty little way. Yeah, I think also just not being able to edit it. Like, it's in the world. It's an artifact now of this time, and I have to commit to that. And that feels like very good and very human.
You mentioned AI, of course, all sorts of
Mhm.
books and thinking. You've obviously done a lot of thinking and writing on this subject of this shift from social media age to the AI age. But the way you're presenting it, um, language in the social media age, even if it's not formally artificial intelligence, you're suggesting it lacks a soul, a heart. So there isn't, you seem to be suggesting there isn't a great difference perhaps between language in the social media age and language in the AI age, where it's literally produced by machines.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because just sort of the way that algorithms train us to use certain language, whether you want a post to be seen or whether you just sort of are picking up the zeitgeist, like we kind of have AI'd ourselves by mimicking certain phrases and just flattening sort of the field of interpretation for words and just like there's really not a lot of space for nuance anymore on the internet, which is sad because I'd like to resist sort of the AI-ness of it all.
These days, Aidan, again, you don't need me to tell you this, every day there seems to be an article about your generation and the internet, depression, anxiety. As I said, you are known as the meme queen of depression Instagram. The best-selling book of the last couple of years is Jonathan Haidt's book about anxiety. Do you feel there's a generational quality to our age of anxiety, or is everyone these days anxious?
Yeah, I think probably most people are anxious. Most people who sort of have an awareness of the world and, whether it's, political, imperialist, capitalist, climate, like there's, we're really getting it from all angles at this point. And I think that we've kind of never, as a culture, like sort of regardless of generation, we've never been so aware of all of the atrocities that happen around us and to us. And we've sort of also never been so aware of our own powerlessness to affect change. And of course, I think on some levels you can. I think we should all try. And also, like, just existentially, there's something really scary about that. And I also think that the way that the internet works, I touch on this a bit in the book, but there's something very existentially scary about sort of producing work that then is just ephemeral and gone. And, I think I call it plastic bag theory. And it's this idea that when we, the internet is like a plastic bag, it's disposable, but it's also forever. It's sort of on its trash island swirling out there somewhere. And then when we use the internet, we kind of become that as well. And I think that tension, I think that overrides generational lines in a lot of ways, but I'm also the generation that really grew up alongside the internet. Like, I remember a time, like when I was a young child, we, I think, had a computer in the house, but it was not a device in the hand. And then that kind of what came during like adolescence. So it's sort of like the internet and I were like children together and then teenagers together and now whatever we're doing together. And that might be a unique experience because I have like this sense of nostalgia for when things were different. And I'm so deeply entrenched in the digital sphere now that I don't know like how I could escape that reasonably. But yeah, millennials, we're very doomy.
You are very doomy. What does it feel like to be so doomy and anxious?
Pretty bad. No, I think, honestly, that was kind of a turning point for me. I did not name myself the meme queen of depression Instagram. That was a title bestowed upon me.
I think it was on a Mashable piece.
Yeah,
in 2021.
it was Mashable. Yeah, and listen, I will accept it. That's, queen of something. And at the same time, I think, well, it was kind of this really interesting time on the internet where social media hadn't been mass marketed yet. Like, really, you could kind of just say something and express how you actually felt. And that was a way to kind of reach other people who felt the same way. And I think especially there was sort of a community of women and like artists who, girls who maybe were like art school dropouts or, aspiring artists with mental illness and like just people who kind of like found each other in by sort of making light of really, raw experiences in their life. And that felt very cool and very kind of like Riot Girl-esque. And then I think the thing I'm friends with a lot of musicians, and I think there's something about, like an indie musician who has to go on stage and play the hit from like his worst breakup ever or the depths of his addiction. And you have to go out and like the crowd cheers and it's been 20 years, but you have to find that place. Like this is such a smaller scale, but it really feels like that sometimes, where people want to label you. And I sort of, I got older and I just didn't want to live in sorrow anymore. And I didn't really want to make, content out of my unhappiness in that way anymore. Like, I think there's a lot of solidarity to be had, but I also think at some point for me, I want to be happy, and I am happy, honestly. Maybe it makes me a little bit more boring on the internet.
We don't be
But,
too happy
yeah.
because you're the meme queen of depression. Otherwise, you'll lose
Okay. Again, not self-described. Wait till, that's coming. The meme queen of, managing her depression is maybe my third nickname.
You've written about something called real life, and your collection of essays does touch in many ways on the internet and real life and the difference between the screen and the physical. Is there any difference these days, Aidan, between the digital and the physical? Do we even, when I was growing up, or when I was growing up with the internet in the 1990s, people always made this dichotomy between the screen and real life. Is that a valuable one, or is the screen now reality and that any other distinction is inappropriate or old-fashioned?
I think that there is a distinction between the two realms, but I think that the way that they interact with and affect one another is new and different. I think that the screen can affect, like before, our screens were kind of ways to reflect and transmit reality. And now I do think that, we see it a lot in politics. We see it socially. I mean, the whole idea of an influencer is kind of the idea that the screen is controlling real life. It's this kind of generated reality, and whether that reality is of, someone's perfect life or someone's, aestheticized depression or whatever, it's kind of this idea that whatever is fabricated in the digital world has real world effects. That being said, though, I do think that, it's important to go outside. I think the real world is like, there's a lot out there. It's worth it. I enjoyed my time in real life in that essay.
Although your friend Mark Zuckerberg would say you can go in real life in Meta. You mentioned politics. I don't want to make this into a conversation about another conversation about Trump. But of course, he's a virtual reality president, maybe a meme president. He certainly behaves in that way. You grew up and you continue to live in Los Angeles, Aidan, the city of, if not influencers, of celebrity, of memes. Donald Trump was a television star, a reality television star, before he was an internet star. Is anything really different? I mean, didn't Los Angeles start all this? I mean, it may not be the center of the internet now where I live, San Francisco is, but is anything profoundly different between the celebrity culture generated by Los Angeles and Hollywood from the 20s or 30s onwards, and in the 1920s and 30s from the 2020s?
Yeah, I mean, Los Angeles is a fascinating place to live because it is this palimpsest of fame and sort of the pursuit of celebrity. And I think that a major difference is the middleman aspect. And, that before you would have to go through the studio system, you would have to hope that your agent would represent you well. And now, ideally, or sort of the dream is that anyone with, a YouTube account or with an Instagram account can be plucked from the masses and find themselves by sheer dint of charisma or skill, could reach that level of celebrity. And I think there are windows of time when that's true. And I also think that we're in an interesting time. We're kind of in Andy Warhol's everyone's had their 15 minutes of fame. And like the entertainment industry is struggling a lot right now, honestly. And a big reason for that is like, sort of streaming gluttony and digital content and AI and another, the influencer economy as such. It's funny, I kind of stepped out of it to write my book, and I'm really grateful to be out of it. And also, like, it's just not that sustainable anymore. Like, I don't know how, like like those industries on all levels have kind of like peaked, it seems, and I don't really know what's next. Like, I do think AI is really coming for a lot of creative people's jobs in that way. I mean, especially something like an influencer where, like, I mean, there's many levels and kinds, but if your job is sort of producing a like plump and glossy version of life, like computers are kind of primed to do that. It's the messiness and the humanity that is the hard thing to replicate.
Yeah, you talk about something called the influencer economy. Some people would suggest that that's a contradiction in terms. There is no influencer economy, or at least there's no influencer economics. As you note, it's very hard, especially these days, to make any money. One of your essays from You Have a New Memory is about grifting your way through, again, the influence economy, whether or not there's a real economy there. It's really hard to make money, isn't it? Would you advise someone a little bit younger than yourself who aspired to be an influencer? What advice would you give? I mean, it's all very well even having 117,000 followers, even 117 million followers on Instagram, but how do you actually make money?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because, of course, I don't know, especially now. I just think that, the way that people often make money is through brand endorsements and brand deals. And I do think that brands are far more wary than they were. But we're living in such a precarious time right now that, if it's also like kind of tough to tell anyone to take any job. Like, it's hard to be like, take student loans and go to college, because like that didn't pan out for so many people. Like, I think we're in this weird era where, because sort of the expectations of like a normal career have imploded for so many people, I'm almost like, man, if you want to influence, go for it. Like, what else do we have at this point?
That sounds really dark.
Sorry.
From the queen of depression. So there's no opportunity. There's nothing out there in your view.
Well, maybe there's a little bit of jouissance in that because our normal systems of economy are crumbling, you should really do the thing that makes you happy. Like, maybe this will be the rise of the artist. And there are, there are a lot of people who end up on Patreon or with a Substack or with sort of successful models of simply, having people support them directly through that. And, obviously, like, we march onwards. There are people with jobs out there. I'm happy to be a writer. I feel grateful.
Can you, I mean, you live in Los Angeles. It's not a cheap city. Your husband is a baker, probably not the best paid work. Can you make a living as a writer and influencer these days to live in a place like Los Angeles?
I think you can scrape by. I mean, get back to us in a couple years, but we're doing okay right now.
What about having a family, Aiden?
Yeah, I mean, the last essay in the book talks about that. Like, I really want a family, and sort of grappling with that, again, sort of being part of this doom generation and thinking about what the future looks like and grappling with that uncertainty, and also being like, yeah, like I want a kid for sure. And I think, my parents are very much of the, like, there's no wrong time or there's no right time. So you might as well just like figure it out. And I'm a little bit more apprehensive, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's possible. I think that, I don't know. You want my 5-year plan?
Well, 5-minute plan, maybe the Andy Warhol plan.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it is an interesting question of sort of what happens after all this, and I do kind of keep waiting. I mean, do you remember last year when they were like threatening that like TikTok was gone for like a day, and all of the TikTok creators were like, I mean, they were all going to lose their livelihoods like that. I'm kind of waiting for Instagram to face the same thing, or for some sort of, you know, calamity to wipe out social media. Or maybe that's just like a coward's way out, because I kind of just can't imagine being on social media the way that I am in the future, and I would rather that they just take that away from me than have to log off myself. But
what about the title of the book? I like the title, You Have a New Memory. Where does that come from, and what does it mean?
okay, so actually it was the notification that your iPhone would send you when you had like, it would like compile your photos for you and then send you a little notification that just says you have a new memory. And I just thought that was so eerie and strange, for your phone to just be like quietly creating memories for you and then depositing them to you, because you can't recall them yourself or create them yourself. And it just really encapsulated the ways that we do allow the digital sphere to kind of uh, to carry the weight of humanity for us. Like in the book, I talk about cognitive lift a little bit, and the idea that we're offloading so much of ourselves to our phones. And you have to do that for convenience. In this world that we live in, it's not realistic to ask people to hold all of the information that we're expected to hold. I think that's so fair. And I'm not like, oh, we're lazy, oh, whatever. But like, we're doing that. And what does it mean to let your phone be the expert on your life? What does it mean to let the phone be sort of your archivist and your arbiter of reality? I just thought that was so interesting. So that's why I called the book that.
The blurb on the front of the page describes your superpower. It's from Phoebe Bridgers. Your superpower is being a critic without judgment. Is that a good thing, to be a critic without judgment? Shouldn't we all, especially if we're critics, shouldn't we have judgment?
I think what she's talking about is, again, kind of the idea of approaching something very directly and speaking from a place of experience rather than outside of it. I think there's space for judgment. And I also think that, I'm kind of most interested in hearing narratives from people who have experienced something directly, or who understand, the appealing parts of something that is kind of grotesque also, if they're going to talk about it, because it kind of, you're able to reach in and really understand more thoroughly just where people come from. Yeah, I mean, I think there's assessment, but I really wasn't interested in writing a screed against the internet or for the internet. Honestly, when I started writing the book, I was much more optimistic about the internet than I am now. It's just been, time passes, and it's been a weird couple of years on the internet. And also at the same time, I'm not going to, like, again, I can't tell people to log off. I can't be like, this is evil, or this is, it's just not realistic, and it's not very interesting. I think it's much more compelling to really take a kind of fractal approach to talking about this, because it's nuanced.
Where are we going then, Aidan, in the future? What's the worst case and the best case scenario for this unfolding digital world of AI, of increasingly smart algorithms that know what we think and have our memories before we even have them ourselves? What can we be optimistic about, and what should we fear?
I mean, I do feel optimistic that we have a real opportunity to think about what we actually want. Like, I think, a lot of the tech that is being developed, it sort of is marketed as, oh, this will free up your leisure time. This will free you up to be more creative. And I think, unfortunately, what happens is then, something, some efficiency tool is created, and then the natural rhetoric after that is like, oh, well, now that you're more efficient, you can take on twice as much work or something. I do think there's an opportunity to push back against that and say, you know what, like, what would I actually do with my free time if I have it. Let's say that, I am able to sift through my inbox and I don't have to deal with emails, and that's like an hour a day that I have back. Like, what do I want to learn in that time? What do I want to do? So I think if there is sort of a mindfulness shift towards that, I wonder whether that might be possible. And again, the idea that, whether it's good or bad, I don't really want to cast a moral aspersion onto the idea of influence or content creation or these digital economies in that way. Either way, they have shown us that you can really upend the way that you sort of are perceived in the world and the way that you make money in the world and the way that you build a life for yourself. I mean, if you told me when I was like 15, like, oh, you're gonna like get famous for having a meme page, I would have asked you what a meme was. Like, that wasn't even a possibility. I don't think I knew what a podcast was. So, like, the idea that there are whole other economies makes me a little bit hopeful that there's something happening that we don't even know about yet. Like we will find a way, I believe. The other side of that is if we don't find a way, I am very, very worried about AI specifically. I'm very worried about its environmental impact. And I'm worried about it. And I also, again, think that there will always be a need for human stories. I think that there are a lot of people whose work might be threatened, but I think that if people are making work that is interesting and true and a little bit difficult, or, a little bit human in its own way, I just think we're always going to want that. And I think that maybe like there will be more of a drive for that artisanal art.
Yeah, we're back to that A word.
Yeah.
The artisanal quality of Aiden Arata. Finally, Aiden, we know we've talked about what you want people to learn about yourself from the book and some of the things you write about. But what did you learn from writing this book? It's a very different experience. As you said, you always aspired to write a book. In fact, you became a social media star in order to have the opportunity to write this book. What do you know now about yourself and the world, having written this book, You Have a New Memory?
Oh, man. I think I've learned so much about, just on a personal journey, my own ability to sit with something and to have discipline, and sort of how good it is for the brain to have a long-term project. When we create for the internet, again, it's very anti-perfectionist, which is nice because it's pretty immediate, it's pretty ephemeral, and at the same time, to existentially sit in something that actually matters to you for a long period of time, and to sit with that doubt and to sit with that frustration in the process, like that's kind of what it means to be human. That's the pursuit. So I feel grateful to have learned that about myself, and to just know, okay, it can be hard, but I can do it.
Well, congratulations on the book. It's out.
Thank you.
Anyone with an interest in the internet or influencers, or indeed, even if you're not quite the meme queen of depression Instagram, anyone with an interest in social media, depression, all these generational issues need to read the new book. It's out now. You Have a New Memory, Aiden Arata. We now have a new memory of Aiden on the show. I have to get you back, Aiden. Lots of subjects that will evolve over the next few years. Real honor to have you. Thank you again, and congratulations on the new book.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. What a joy.